So we're going to be talking about how to create a comic character by using a reference. And so this is a reference that I chose. It's pretty basic, pretty simple. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into layers first off. And as I can see here, it looks like I don't have my layers open. So let me see if I can see. This is the thing. It's like it's disabling some of my stuff. So it's like not letting me get into things that I need to see. There we go. Now I can see them. Okay, so I'll cut out that first part. All right, so here's some of my layers, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's already in here. But what I want to do is I just want to create a separate file to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my selection tool and grab this entire piece, right? And I'm going to copy it, Command C, and I'm going to go to File, New, and I will make a new file with one layer, and I will call this Sheila 280, since I've done this so many times. And we will say Create, and there she is. And now we're going to paste her in there, Command V. So there she is. So I'm starting off with just the one layer. And the first thing I want to do is lock that layer down. And the way I lock that layer down is right here. So I go ahead and hit lock. And then I'm going to create a new layer. So the new layer is where I am going to put the face, right? So that's what I want to do. And I want to make sure that, it's kind of the right size. So I'm going to use a shape tool. So I'm going to go over here to ellipse, and I'm going to grab, and notice how it defaulted to black. So it's got a black fill, and it has a no stroke. So I'm just going to go ahead and make an ellipse that sort of is the size of her head. And notice that I go above her forehead, like above where her hair starts, because your head is much taller than that. And I can't see anything under it, can I? But if I kind of scoot it over, it's pretty much the right size. So how do I get to see inside here? Well, one of the ways you can do it is by clicking on this double arrow right here, and you'll notice that there's a fast key, and it's Shift X, and that's the same for the Mac and the PC. So if I hold my Shift key and hit the letter X, I can go back and forth. So now I just see the stroke, and the fill is gone. If I hold again, it'll go back, right? So this is a way to toggle back and forth between your stroke and your fill. Now, one of the things I want to do is make that stroke a little wider so I can see it really good. So I'm going to make it 2 points. So there it is. I can see it. And I'm going to just kind of start to get it to the size I want. Okay, so there, I'm pretty close. But I'd like to get this chin line to be more functional. So I'm just going to zoom into this chin line. And I want you to see kind of the line on the stroke. Notice that there's a red line here, because notice that I'm on this red layer right here in my layers palette. And the stroke itself, if I go way in, is 50% on each side of this line. So this is the default of Illustrator. So let's go back out, Command negative, zoom out, and let's go ahead and add some points so we can make the changes that we need in this shape to be able to fit that jawline. So the way we do that is we go to our pen tool, and the fast key for our pen tool, as we can see here, is the letter P, right? So if I'm over here with my zoom tool and I hit the letter P on my keyboard, it automatically takes me to the pen tool. And the pen tool, if you'll notice, right next to it is a little asterisk. That means it wants to start a new file, a new layer, so a new object. So if I click here, notice that it's just making its own thing, right? But that's not what I want. I want to be able to add a point here. So I'm going to delete that one. And let's go back over here. And notice when I scroll over the top of this, notice that it turns into a line. It's like we see it. So let's zoom way in, get our P tool, pen tool, and scroll over the top. Now, if I have this highlight, I want to grab it, and I grab my pen tool. Now when I come over the top, you'll notice if you look really closely that instead of an asterisk, now my pen tool now has a plus sign. So if I click, it adds its own point. Now I'm going to hit the letter A for direct selection, and I can move this thing around. Now notice that it gave me handlebars right away. So I can actually curve these handlebars to become whatever I want. And I can move this point around wherever I need it. So if I want this handlebar to have less of a curve, I'm going to bring it in. If I want this handlebar to have less of a curve, I can, bring it in as well, right? So something about there looks pretty good. And now I'm going to bring this one up, and I'm going to go over here. I'm going to get my P for pen again. I'm going to make another point, and whoops, Command Z. I'm going to go ahead and see how, now see the negative sign? So that's like, it's over a point. It says, well, what do you want me to do? You want me to delete that point? I don't want to delete that point. I want to change it. So I'm going to go back to my letter A. And now I've got my direct selection tool. So now I can go ahead and click on that point, and I get my handlebars, and I can kind of curve them accordingly. So let's find that point again, click on it, and pull those handlebars around. So I just click and hold my mouse, my thumb down on my trackpad, and I can really make this look pretty darn close. So see how I just really quickly took a shape and turned it into what I needed. Now she also has ears. So let's go ahead and add some ears. So I'm going to go grab that pen tool again, or hit the letter P, and I'm going to make 3 points. Just going to make some extra points up in here. Okay, now I made 3 points. Grab my A tool again, click off. I want that point. I want those. So I'm going to go ahead and curve that out. Now, one thing about these handlebars is if you drag them in, they don't have a curve. So now I just made it straight. So it sort of fits that other one. So I can kind of curve it out and fix it. I've got this other point here. I'm going to drag that one up and probably curve it out. Let's find it again. And make a kind of an ear. Now, if that's like not where I want it, I can drag it up. So now I sort of have an ear in there. If I wanted to, I could start to create these earrings and everything else. So let's go to the other side and do the same thing. So I'm going to hit P for pen, make a point where I think it might be needed, make another point, make another point. I've got to be right on the line to make the point. Then I'm going to hit the A tool, direct selection tool, click on it, and start to pull my handlebars out. And the longer I pull the handlebar out, the harder the curve. The less I pull the handlebar in, the more I pull it in, the less the curve. So see how I kind of straighten that one out. Now I can maybe pull this out a little bit and curve it a little more. Drag this one up. And see how it'll curve in on itself? You don't want that. So you always want it to be outside. And you can affect that curve, right? So you can make it look kind of like an ear. Now it's going to get covered. Double click, I get those points again. And this one kind of feels too low, so I'll just pull it up. Don't worry, you can't make any mistakes. It's like you can just keep fixing them and changing them. So it's not a big deal. It looks like we got an extra point line in here, so I'm not really sure how that happened. And I'm going to use my pen tool to delete that extra point. So see it? I just hit delete and now it's gone. Looks like this got all out of whack, so let's fix it. Hello, you. We don't want you up there. Command Z. Let's get back to our selection tool, direct selection tool. Find that crazy point that's making that weird thing. So see that? That's a big long handlebar. So I can fix that. I can just drag it back in. And let's zoom out so you can kind of see how it's coming back. So somehow it got out of whack on me. I'm not really sure how, but that's okay. I'll just pull it in. So now it's back to where it's supposed to be. If I want this to come down a little bit, I can bring it down. So there's sort of the outline of her face, right? So if I want to fill this face, I want to give it like a fill, like a skin tone, I can double click on the fill and kind of go into some of these skin tone areas, pick one, and go ahead and say, okay. So let's say that's what I decide on. For now, I'm going to leave that as is, and I'm going to just turn it. I'm going to turn the eye off in the layers palette so I can see the rest. So now I'm going to start working on the mouth. So I'm going to make another layer. Oh, and let's just change this one and make sure I name it. And so this is head. And I'm going to double click on layer 3, and I'm going to call it mouth. Okay. So I can do this two ways. I can use my pen tool. And when I use my pen tool, I can make shapes by clicking and dragging and clicking and dragging and clicking, and then eventually closing it up by going to the first click. So now I've got a shape, an object. But I can also do it by using my pencil tool. So my pencil tool is right down here. And notice it says fill and stroke. Let me just grab this. So this is your pencil tool. And if I click hard, there I can see it. And the fast key for it is N. So I can make a shape this way too. Notice when I get to close it, I get that O for object. So now I've got another shape. So instead of clicking at every single point, I just draw like a pencil. All right. So let's delete those. And either one works fine. So if you're nervous about using the the pencil tool, then use the pen tool. You can use either one. They do the same thing, it's just in different ways. So I'm going to go and make the bottom lip first with my pencil tool or my letter N. And I'm just going to go ahead and follow the curve of the lip and come all the way around and go back. And now it's formed, and I'm going to give it a color. That's a little bright. And there's my lip. If I want this point to come out further, like I didn't do it quite good enough, I can use my direct selection tool, click off, find that one point, and drag it out, and bring those handlebars in so it's sharper. And there it is. If it's too thick of a stroke, I can click on my strokes over here, and I can change the stroke weight. So I can make it 1 point, right? Whatever I want, I can keep changing it as I go. So let's just drag this one out of the way. I'm going to need my selection tool, letter V, and drag it out. Grab my N for my pencil tool, and I'm going to make the top lip. And I'm just going to come over, and I'm kind of going over outside of the line on this. I might like it, I might not. And I want it to look just like this one. So I will hit the I for eyedropper and click, and there's my pen tool. There's my bottom and top lip. So let's just drag them in there for now. And it looks like it kind of messed up there. And I did that on purpose. So how do I fix it? Well, let's grab our direct selection tool, find the points that we might want to move, and bring them up. And if there's too many points, let's zoom in so we can see what we have. So see these extra points? So if I hit my pen tool and I click on them and I say, I don't want that point. See, now I've got that negative sign. Now I just get rid of it. Okay, so I did that on purpose so that you could see how easily you could just remove and add points wherever you need them. And you can change any of these handlebar shapes. So like if I hit the letter A again, there's that handlebar. You know, I can take these points and slide them around, and I can move these handlebars, and I can make this be however I need it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that back again, and now that looks a little better. Okay, so let's zoom out and let's add and see what we've got so far. And that's what we have so far. Okay, so let's turn these guys off and let's make another layer. So this time we're going to do the nose. And this one I like using the pencil tool on. Now one thing about the pencil tool that is a little different is that, and I'm going to take Z for zoom, and I'm going to zoom into her nose. One thing about the pencil tool that's a little bit different is that if you hit a line, like see how this nose, bottom kind of curvature of the nose, and then the nostril, they almost look like they're touching. See that? So if I try to make this and the pencil tool ends up touching this, that will become one line. So I am careful to not do that, but you'll see what I mean. So instead of going right on this line, I'm going to kind of come here, and then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to make this line. So notice that I'm kind of coming down and over and stopping. And now I'm going to do the same thing here. Down and over and stop. And then this one, I'm not going to touch that other one. I'm just going to make it. So all this stuff, I'm going to kind of make these lines, and they don't look very good right now, but I'm going to show you some things that I haven't yet, and that is how to alter the way these lines work. So there's 2 lines there. Okay, so there's a bunch of lines. It looks like I kind of made a little curve here. I don't like that. Let's take a look at it. So anytime I want, I can zoom in, and there I can see I did. Yuck. So let's go ahead, find our points. See that curve in there? See it? Ugh. So let's zoom way with our, and let's hit delete on that one, and then maybe delete on this one. There we go. So that's better. Notice how these are really sharp. So one of the things I don't like about this is that I want these to be curved. I want them to look soft. So I want to grab every point that I made, every line that I made. So see all my lines. And then I'm going to go to my stroke tool, and at the bottom of my stroke tool, or at the top here, normally when you see your stroke tool, it'll look like this. So I want to see stuff. So there's always these 3 lines, and I always call those like the more, more. So if I say to you, go to the 3 more lines for more, M-O-R-E, that's always these. Every palette in Adobe on almost every program will have these. And that's always where you're going to find more tools. So more stuff. So if I click on this and say show options, now I can see some things. So the cap, this is the cap. So I want that to be rounded. So I'm going to click rounded. But I don't have them highlighted, do I? What is a fast way to highlight them? Oh, remember I said if you want to grab anything on a separate layer, you just have to click that little circle. So if I click that circle, notice how every single line now, I see all the lines in the center. So now if I hit cap, every line turned into a cap. So I didn't have to go one by one. They just turn. The other thing that I can do is at the bottom, there's this thing called uniform. So basically what that means is this is a straight line. That's all it is. But if I want that line to look different, I can do something like that. Or I can go and try this. And now I get something that looks more hand-drawn, right? So maybe we'll stay with this one for now, because I kind of like that, the look of that. But see how it kind of went sharp? So it took the profile of this. So I can do that on the lip too if I wanted, but for now, I'll leave this just like that. So let's zoom out. There's our nose. And we'll go ahead and see what we have. And that's what we have so far. So if I wanted to say, for example, I wanted to make that mouth kind of feel the same as the nose, I can just come right over here and change it. So now I have a different look. Okay. So let's turn all those off and let's do one of the eyes. So I have a very specific way that I like to do the eyes. I always want to make sure I'm on the topmost layer when I add my new layer so they all go in a row. This one will be eyes. E-Y-E-S. And we're going to zoom into one eye, grab our zoom tool, and there we are. So I'm going to use my pencil tool, and I'm just going to draw the outline of the eye. So here I go, and it's not going to be perfect because I'm using my trackpad, but it's okay. And I'll keep coming in and close. So there's my eye. I might want to fix a couple of those points, like this curved weird one right there. That's not too bad. Okay, so that's kind of my eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that eye and I'm just going to move it out of the way. So I'll grab my selection tool and I'll move it out of the way, and then I'm going to make another eye just like it. So first I want to copy it, Command C, and paste. So there's my second eye. And so on my first eye, I'm probably going to drop the amount of the line weight, and I'm going to just make it 1 point. And on this one, I'm going to increase, I'm going to do that thing that we did before. So I want to grab it, and this time I'm going to use these two. And then I'm going to increase this line weight to about 2. So I kind of have like almost like I can see the kind of bottom and top eyelid. I could even increase it to 3, honestly. Let's try that because it's a female. So like that. So, and then I could work it so it's a little smoother or whatever. But at this point, it's good for just understanding where we're at. So those are my 2 eyes, right? One's going to be on the bottom and one's going to be on the top. And I will show you that as we go. The next thing I want to do is work on my eye iris itself. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a circular shape that's pretty close to that iris. Scoot it over. Feels pretty good. I'm going to grab my direct selection tool again, and I'm just going to take that 1 point and shove it up in there. And then I'm going to kind of curve out this so it feels more like the eye. There. So it's like, you know, this part, the skin is actually coming over. So the eye really is over here, but the skin is kind of coming over it. So I want to kind of reflect that. Now, the other thing I want to do is change the color of the eye. So I'm going to just go ahead, double click. And I have green eyes, and only 0.02% of the population of the whole world has green eyes. So I'm kind of proud of that. So I'm going to just go ahead and make the background green. And there's the background of my eye. Now, there's another tool, shape tool in here that works really nice for the eye, and that's the star tool. So if I just go ahead and try to make a star, oh, wow. Well, what happened here? Well, I had done earlier, if you use your up arrow and your down arrow, you can change the number of points in a star. So by holding my mouse down, and it's still highlighted, I can use my up arrow, and I continue to add points. So I'll keep going. And I'm going to make a whole bunch of points. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to go ahead and change the color of that. So I think I'm going to make it a little lighter, something like that. And then I'm just going to go use my selection tool, my letter V, and I'm going to drag it up in the eye. And I'm going to kind of make it bigger so it sort of fits that iris color. So that looks pretty good. I like that. And then I'm going to copy it, Command C, Command V. I made another one, and I'm going to make that one a different color. So I really want to kind of look a little more realistic. So I'll go ahead and do that. Maybe a more brown, because sometimes green eyes have a little brown in them. So I'll just do like a little brownish color. There we go. And then this one, I'm going to kind of, distort a little bit. And then I might change the opacity even, just to have some fun with it. So I'll drop the opacity down so I can see through it a little bit. There we go. And so now I've got a couple things going on here. Maybe I'll make that one a little smaller. There. So there's, the basics of my eye. So I'm going to go and group those. So now I'm done with that. I like it. I'm going to group it, Command G, or, if you go over here, you can see Command G, or in the PC, it would be Control G. Now I'm going to make the iris. So the pupil rather. So I'm going to go back to my ellipse tool, and I'm going to make a little black circle. And obviously it's still brown, so I'm going to change it to black. And I'm going to put that in here. Sometimes when they're real tiny like this, it's hard to move them. See, it just wants to twirl. I don't want it to twirl. Stupid thing. Excuse me. There we go. And I put that in there. And now I want to give it a highlight, because eyes are always wet. So the eyes are glossy. So it's really easy to make a highlight. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab that ellipse tool again. And I'm just going to make a little white, like a little space, kind of an ellipse, and not a circle. I'm going to make it white by changing that fill color again. And I'm just going to go ahead and click, cancel. I'm just going to grab my selection tool and grab it, hopefully, and drag it up in there. Okay, So now I've got the beginnings of my eye. So the other thing I want to do is I want to give the white of the eye. So remember, this is see-through. So if I put it over something, you can see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it with a color, kind of a off-white like that. And then I'm going to use my gradient tool. So if I click on my gradient, see what happens? I get this weird kind of like half white, half gray. But there's this other gradient tool. So like if you look here, it says edit gradient. So this is a linear gradient. Then one in the middle is a radial gradient. So if I go like that, it starts to give me the shape of the eyeball. But this is one of the weird things about Photoshop. Illustrator, I'm not really sure why it works this way. But for some reason, when you go to, the colors here, they're always grayscale. So if I double click this, notice that it shows me my colors. So this is my gradient and these are my colors, and I have white and black. So if I go to the more, remember there's always the more, it says grayscale. It always defaults to grayscale. So it's really confounding for new students. Like, why is it gray? I'm in color. Why is it in color? So you can go ahead and change it to CMYK or RGB. I'll just do RGB for now. And I'm going to kind of go into this kind of reddish area. Ugh, maybe like more red. And so now I've got this really crazy looking pink eye, but I don't want that. So I'm gonna go over here, double click again, and see I get all this. So I want to kind of get up higher into the whites, and I'm gonna just start to kind of pull this over, way over here. And notice that now I'm getting almost like a white there. So I'm getting it really light. I just want to have a little bit of rounding going on the edge of that eye. And I can kind of pull it over a little, this like center area here. This guy, kind of pull it over. I should be able to pull this over. And let me just double click it again. And I know it seems really faint, but it does make it look more realistic. So I'm going to come back just a little bit. That's too much. Like right in there. So I like that. Okay, so now I've got my eye figured out and it looks good and I like it. So let's go ahead and make sure it's in the background. So I'm going to go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back, and I'm going to take that eye and stick it back there. Okay, and now I'm going to take my big see-through eye on the top, and it's got to be on the top. It's not on the top because remember I made it before I made the rest. So I'll go bring to front, and now I'll bring that one right on top, and now I can adjust it accordingly. There we go. And now I've got what looks like a pretty realistic looking eye. So now that I have it all together, I'm going to go ahead and group it again, Command G. And now I want to make the other eye, right? So how do I do that? Well, before I do that, I think I'd like to make this eyebrow. So I'm just going to use the pencil tool and I'm just going to make some lines here. And I'm just going to be kind of crazy. Okay. And it's not perfect, but it's all right. And remember, I can alter these marks. And again, it's not perfect, but I'm not worried about that. I'm going to make sure they're rounded, and I'm going to make sure the curves are rounded. And then I'm going to move it out of the way, and I'm going to also make it a little thinner. So I'll probably make it like 0.5. And I'm going to move it out of the way. And this one I kind of did by itself, so I'm going to delete that. And then I'm going to make a full shape behind it. So I'll use my pen tool, and I'll just sort of make a shape. And I'm not going to want it black, and I'm not going to want that other one black. I'm probably going to want it like a brownish color. So, because I'm going to make her have red hair. So I'm going to kind of come in here, make kind of a lighter brown. That's too gray. That's good. So we'll make it that color. And then this, I'm going to, whoops, Command Z, cancel. It's still got my pen tool. I don't want my pen tool. All right. So let's go ahead and grab this whole thing so I make sure I get the right color. You know, I've got to have it selected. And now I'm going to make it a color. So I'll make it a little lighter than that other color. Maybe like that. All right, hopefully. And it's got to be a stroke. Oh, Command Z. It's like going crazy right now. So let's try it again. There we go. So now I've got my stroke picked out, and I'm going to just drop it on top of here, and I can alter it, you know, by kind of moving it around. And I'll use my direct selection arrow, and I can pull these points down. I didn't do a very good job of matching, but I'll just drag them in, you know. Oh dear, grab the wrong one. You can barely see it in there, but it actually looks, you know, somewhat like an eyebrow. I would really spend some time doing this. Anyways, so now I've got all of this. I'm going to group it. Command G. So there's my eye. All right. So now that I've done that, I'm going to copy it. Command C. I'm going to make another set. Command V. So there's my another set. And I'm going to drag it down. And I'm going to go into Object, Transform, and Reflect. And say OK. And drag it in. And there's my other eye. So let's zoom out, Command negative. Let's turn everything on. And we'll get really pretty far along the way. So let's go ahead and start on the hair. Excuse me. And HAI. And again, I'm going to turn everything off just because it's easier. And I'm going to make the hair in one fell swoop. Now I can come back in with my pencil, just like I did with my eyebrow, and give all kinds of hair things. I can put in shapes, however I want. But I'm going to use my pencil tool, and I'm just going to kind of go around, and I'm just going to build this hair. And I can fix any of these points anywhere along the way. You know, if I don't like them, I can go and change them. And I'm just sort of getting creative here. And I'm kind of coming around. And I'm just following. I'm going to go all the way around. And it's, you know, obviously different. But again, I can change any of my points anywhere along the way. You know, and I'm doing this kind of quickly. And now I'm going to flip it. And there's her hair. I'm going to turn everything else on. And I want to make a neck. So I'm going to go below the head. And I'm just going to create a neckline. So I'll use my pen tool this time. And I'll just kind of like, where would her neck be? And I'll just make some, oops, I want to make sure I'm on the right layer, Command Z. So see what I did? I was on the wrong layer. So I want to go on my neck layer. And click off always. And now Command Z. And all right. Get back onto my neck layer. And if I have to, I can lock this other layer so it's not in my way. I can lock this layer. I can unlock them very easily. So I'll go ahead and make that neck. So there's her neck. And it's not perfect, but it sort of gives me a thing. And see how it's remembering the color of the hair? That's okay. Now I'll use my eyedropper and grab her face. And in no time at all, let's say if I want to change this hair color, I can click on it. I can come over here and I can say I want it to be more red. So there's a different color. I want to change the color of her eyes. Same thing. So for example, let's zoom in to the eye. And I'll show you how quickly you can change things. So let's say I just want to change the color of her eye. So right now I've got all this stuff highlighted. So it feels like, oh my gosh, how do I not highlight all that stuff? It's going to be crazy. It's like, how can I get to what I want to get to? All I have to do is if I go into my eyes, so if I click twirl down, I can see I've got two groups. Remember, I grouped them. So if I go down here, I can see, oh, here's another group. So there's my another groups. Remember, I regrouped these multiple times. So there's my eye, my actual eye. So if I click on just that, I now have the color of that eye. So see, it show it to me. So if I say, oh, I want it to be even brighter green, like somewhere over here, I don't like that. Maybe that. So see, now it changed it, and they're different. Let's say I want it to be blue. Okay. So now I just changed it to blue. So let's say I decide, okay, I want to do it to the other eye. Well, remember, we have two groups because we copied and pasted it once it was all grouped. So let's just twirl all that stuff up, go back down, go to the next one, find the eyes. There's the pupil and the irises. Click on that dot. And then what do I want to do? I'll use my eyedropper. And now I've changed it to be the same. Okay. So that's it in a nutshell of what you're going to be working on. Again, this is very rudimentary, but this gets you started. And this is what I want. I want you to just get started. So I'm going to stop